are you today?
Hi, good. How are you?
Excellent. Nice to meet you.
Me too. I like your background.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, if you send me your address, I'll send you a sticker.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, when
Yeah.
we're done here. Well, hey, I'm glad that we had the chance to connect. Thank you for taking a minute out. And I want to begin everything with what we've all lived through for the last 3 years, which was COVID.
Ugh.
How did you survive that time period? And how has it changed you now that we're coming out of it?
Well, certainly don't take things for granted, but not that, you should ever take things for granted if you can help it. But well, as far as music goes, I fooled around with video things of my own. There was a program called Road Tour that it's like stock video. I fooled around with, editing, learning just some things on my own. I had started to work on this new album, but that was cut short immediately. The last person I saw was the guitarist, and we started working on one song, and that was the last human that I saw, and then everything was shut down. So, I still think I still there are certain things that I still can't believe happened in our lifetime. 9/11, I will still never believe that happened. I still can't believe we had a pandemic. There's certain things that you just can't wrap your head around no matter how much time goes by. So,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah. Well, does it feel good to have a new album out? Does it feel like a new beginning, kind of cathartic, so to speak?
um, I had wanted to do this for a while. It just was the timing of it. I had to wait until it was possible. Um, it feels cathartic just because it's another step forward into something, they've all been a little different, the albums, and this one, um, yeah, every one you complete is it's a great feeling. Yeah, they take a
So,
long time. Yeah.
yeah, for sure. Yeah, yeah, yeah. So talk to me about this brand new project, Pop Torch. Talk to me about what went into this and, just how you feel in general about it.
So back when I did my second album, which was more singer-songwriter oriented, because I basically consider myself a pop singer, but when it comes to like categorizing, it's necessary for clarity, but it's also kind of a dangerous thing to me because um, you get put in a box,
Yeah.
and you wind up putting yourself in a box also sometimes. And when I say pop, being a pop singer by today's standards, someone would say you're not, but that isn't true, in my opinion. But going back to that second album, what happened was I got a review in a column, a British writer. The column was called Art of the Torch Singer. And I thought, well, why is he writing about me? I'm not a torch singer. But when he defined what he thought a torch singer was, I thought, well, maybe I am. And so this idea started like brewing in my head about Pop Torch, because I always sang standards, always, from the very beginning. And I I started performing, calling the show Pop Torch. And then I thought it was a catchy kind of name. And so the album, I said, well, maybe it's a business killer, but I just felt like I'm going to do the songs I feel that I can do well enough or well and combine them with my own. And I basically thought, well, this will either be uh, a great mashup or a hot mess, so, but I really, I'm happy with the way it came out. Everybody did a great job. It was a great experience. And sometimes you can't believe you look at it and said, I got that done. How did I get that done? It took a year. They all take a year. So,
Yeah.
yeah,
So what are you hoping the listener gets from this album?
I hope that it would, maybe draw people in who maybe thought, well, they didn't know that song, perhaps, an old standard that, because the ones on there, except for You Forgot Your Gloves, which is very obscure, the standards that are on there are very well known, but maybe not to somebody else. It just to expand, the horizons that, you can, you don't have to be put in a box. You can look like you can sing this, you can sing that, and you still can be you. You're still who you are, and that doesn't change. So I hope that, and that they like the arrangements, that they feel, you know, when I'm singing it, what I hope I'm imparting, that people feel certain, I have a very calming kind of voice. I'm not like an in your face singer. So everybody's going to get something different from it. So I just hope it, opens people's minds to like, oh, you can do this, you can do that, and you can still be who you are. And because I
Yeah,
think we're so busy defining everything and defining ourselves, and especially now everything's so micro marketed, and you know,
for
so
sure.
yeah.
So, how did this journey into the music begin for you? Where were you born and raised, and how did it all start?
Well, when I say I was born into a musical family, my father was a violinist turned ad man. So he basically decided when he wasn't going to pursue the violin anymore, he got an entry level job in advertising, but he had a very strong music background. So he wound up leaving advertising to become the supplier of the music. So I got my start in jingles. Basically, I most likely would not have if my father wasn't in the business. I would have not realized it was a path. And it was a very double-edged sword for me. Now that my mom's not listening to this, I can be a little more honest because she listened to my last interview and I did, she puts him on a pedestal. So I didn't want to say it wasn't always, it was a great professional experience, but when you are the daughter of somebody who's well known in an industry, it's double-edged. And but it was a very great intro into, you know, you have to rise to the occasion, become a professional. And so but that ate up about 10 years of my life. So, and then I wound up teaching a class in it, which was really, that was a great experience. And from there, I met another writer who was one of my students, and we became a duo. So we were a duo for quite a while, sort of like in the 90s when it was very acoustic. We called ourselves acoustic pop because we weren't really folk singers, but we were on that circuit. So I had to find a way to fit into that circuit.
Yeah.
Sometimes we brought a drum machine and they would look at us in horror, So,
Yeah.
but so that's where I got my start. And from there, being in this duo, I was writing songs already, but I really wasn't performing till I was almost 30. So
Okay.
I was in the studio and learned those skills early on. So,
So, what was one of the first live shows that you ever saw that blew you away?
well, there was this place I remember up on Broadway called Jay's. And it was run by a woman. She was a jazz singer named Judy. I can't remember her last name. And I started out by singing standards. So my first accompanist, actually before I was in the duo, was Gregory Toroyan, who arranged most of the songs on this album. So I've known him quite a long time. And we got this job at Jay's. It was like one of these four setters. And she says, I'm going to pay you 50 smackers. Is that okay? And I'm like, okay. So it was just cutting your teeth on singing like set after set after set. And that's a really great way to get experience. So I did a lot of long setter kind of shows,
Yeah.
yeah, but that was one of my first memories. That was a really nice club. It was upstairs on like 97th and Broadway, but it's been gone a long time.
Yeah.
So yeah.
So, in this journey of being a professional musician, what do you like the best about it? What do you look forward to the most every day?
Hmm. I'm trying to think. It depends like what phase you're in. Like right now, because of the new album, I'm doing a lot of, trying to promote it, and so I haven't really done in the last 6 months much performing because you just can't do all these things at once. It's a
Yeah.
lot of territory to cover. So now I look forward to getting new listeners, having new people find it, and a lot of social media stuff, which I don't know if I look forward to it or I mean, my last frontier was TikTok, and I really had not much of an interest in it, but now I'm like a TikTok person, and that's time consuming. I don't know if I look forward to it, but sometimes even when you resist something and you start doing it, I actually started thinking, well, this isn't so bad, but it's so much to keep up with, and that's the one thing about TikTok. Social media, though, it's I don't know if I look forward to it or it just seems to be a necessary evil or whatever. You have to, every day you get up, I see time being chewed up, looking at this, looking at that, what stats, it was a simpler time when I made my first record. People just bought records. That was
Yeah.
it. Yeah.
Yeah.
You went to a show, they bought a record, they went to that's it.
That's it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So speaking of shows, if you could get into a time machine and go back and see any performer anywhere, where are you going?
Well, I remember I was always a huge Carly Simon fan growing up. A lot of people would say, people say, who do you sound like? I really don't sound like anybody, to be honest with you, but her, if I had to pick one person. But then she started to become, she had this terrible stage fright. And I remember I had tickets to see her at the Bottom Line, and she canceled because she had had a bad time in Philadelphia in a previous show. But then I remember the thrill. I mean, it was a time machine, but it came true because when Tower was still there, I had my first record in Tower, and I remember she was going to appear with her son, and they were going to sing some Christmas related songs. And I remember that was a thrill. Well, the other's Jethro Tull, but I did finally get to hear them. And these are from going back to like, growing up. And
Yeah.
and then, maybe people who aren't alive anymore, like Billie Holiday, that would have been a thrill.
Yeah. So what's the best advice that you've ever gotten? Best career advice that's always rang true for you?
Probably most of the things come from my father, because my father he was just so smart, and he had a lot of things to say about. He used to say, you just need one thing. I'm trying to think, I've gotten so many things said to me along the way. I mean, I say to myself, I'm a very tenacious person, very stubborn. So I don't give up easily, with anything. It's not just music. Um, and somebody said to me once, I had a song recorded by Dionne Warwick back in when I was in my late 20s with a songwriter that I worked with for a short while. And then someone said to me, if it can happen once, it can happen again. And I guess it's really just, I think you just have to like the journey. And I've, said this before, that I was a very results oriented person before I started making records, mostly probably because my family, they were very like, you know, what did you get from it? How much did you make? And they, not that they don't have good values. It's just, so I've become more of a process oriented person over these years, which is really important, because everything else, you don't know you don't know how things are going to land. You don't know, if you define yourself by that, you're not going to you're not going to be happy. And when I was younger, I defined myself a lot by the outside measures of what is this bringing me? And that's not where your real happiness comes from. I mean, you want that acknowledgement, but I would say you really have to, like what you're doing, and satisfy yourself. I think, with the 3 records I've made, I can go back for the first 2 and say, on that, I wish I had done that. It's not that I don't really like them. It's like, you would have maybe done that differently, but in this one, for some reason, I feel very, wow, I wouldn't have changed a thing. Whether someone takes to it or not is out of my hands, but
Yeah.
you have to realize also a lot of things are out of your hands,
Yeah.
and can only put your best foot forward, I guess. And hopefully you're to grow. If you're not going forward and growing, you have to push yourself, and that's hard. Most people, you want to resist that to some degree. So
So let's say you have a dream tonight. You run into the 20-year-old version of yourself, and you could give that version of
I
you
hope not.
and you could give that version of you a piece of advice based on the wisdom
Oh,
you've gained in your life. What would you tell that young version of you?
don't be so hard on yourself, first of all. Oh my gosh, I listened back to, tortured myself when I did these jingles, because I was surrounded by these like amazing singers, especially in a group. When you're doing a solo, they want you for you. And when I go back and listen, I'm like, what were you? I mean, what's the problem? I mean, the way I tormented myself about that, I would say, don't be so hard on yourself, for sure. And and so judgmental about, and also just to be more, like I said, enjoy the experience of something as opposed to where it's going to get you. And but unfortunately, when you're that young, it's you know it's too bad that it takes like a number of years to turn around and be smart.
Yeah, for sure. So everyone out there has a perception of you, family, friends, fans, but you ultimately run the show. What's your perception of you? Who do you think you are?
Oh, gosh. It sounds like a therapy
Yeah,
question.
this is a therapy hour.
Yeah, that's okay. Who am I? Well, I will say what I do is not who I am. And most people, I think, well, I can't speak for other people. I think a lot of people might confuse like who you are with what you do. It certainly feeds what I do, but sometimes I'll play this game with myself, or just say, what would if I couldn't do this, or I didn't do this anymore, what would I do? And I mean, when I was little, I wanted to be either a detective or a singer or a private detective. And now I say, oh, maybe I would like to be a forensic psychologist. I didn't know what that was even when I was 20, you know?
Sure.
So trying to think, basically I hope when I sing what I am as a person comes through, which is, I think I'm a pretty kind person. I'm a sensitive person. I have empathy, and I think that comes through in my singing, so I think you can still have those things, and sometimes it doesn't come through in what you do per se, but I think hopefully it does with what I do, and the type of things that I choose to sing.
Yeah.
If somebody says I put you on the sad songs playlist, it doesn't upset me. It's like, that's good, I belong there.
So if anyone out there wants to pick up the new album, learn about
Yeah.
live shows, anything about any previous releases, where can they go?
Well, all the usual places, Spotify, Amazon, Tidal. My website has immediate links to those places. So unfortunately, I wish I could say the stores, what stores, The first album I could have said, just go to Tower.
Yeah.
My website has everything you ever wanted to know. It has video. I just redid it, so it's pretty comprehensive. But, the usual places where people go to find what they like.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Excellent. Ellen, thank you so much for your story,
Thank
for your
you.
time. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, you bet.